Alright, today I'm going to show you how to use Stoneherry Spell Editor to create a custom spell and a custom proc effect for World of Warcraft Wrath of Lich King version 3.3.5. The reason why we use Wrath of Lich King, especially 3.3.5, it's the most commonly modded, and Stoneherry Spell Editor is currently the only spell editor where it is which is compatible with 3.3.5. I'm gonna click away before Syndra Ghost starts blaring at me. Okay, so what you will need is you will need the following. If I quickly go to my documents, you will need a server, obviously. You can either compile it yourself with Trinity Core, or you can use a repack. I like using AC Web's repack since it's the most complete and it's also very basic. It doesn't It doesn't contain any extra stuff except for what you need, like the authentication server, the world server, a PHP server, a MySQL server, and a Apache server. What else you will need is you will need a copy of the World of Warcraft spell editor by Stoneherry, the latest version. And you will need an MPQ editor so we can make client-side patches. The reason we need to make client-side patches is any visual change that we make, like spell name and icon and description, that needs to be patched because that's handled client side. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a spell, or I'm going to make a proc effect, a passive effect. Whenever you get hit, you have 50% chance to receive a absorb shield. So, how we're going to do that is we're going into our spell editor, and you can pick between MySQL and SQLite. Now the difference is, if you're running in a MySQL server and you know how it works, just pick that. That's usually fastest. But the simpler way is to use SQLite. It is slower, but you won't have to connect an additional database and create new tables. So we're gonna select SQLite. We're gonna wait for the spell editor to load. And the smartest thing is you can just make a new spell. Or we can base it on an existing spell, and that's what I like to use because then I have some sort of base that we can use. So I'm gonna use spell 98. I'm gonna use spell 9778, which is a developer spell. Which it says here, when struck in combat, has a 3% chance to heal you for a value. We're going to create a new spell. We're going to copy an existing record, and we're going to call it 9778. Or at least that's not what we're going to call it. You're free to pick any range. I like to use 81,000 for my custom spells, so I'm going to use 81,010. So now we wait, and now it's created. So let's scroll all the way down. 81,010. If your spell doesn't load, what I like to do is just close it and just reopen it. Then you just, once again, open it, select SQLite, which is easier for me. Just gonna wait, scroll all the way down, and there's our heal. First, we're gonna call it, let's just call it our test absorb spell, and we're gonna say spell description. Whenever you cast a spell, you have a, I think it was $T $T% chance to absorb coming damage. And we're going to put in the tooltip whenever the spell actually does trigger, absorbing damage. Alright. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to our base. So, this is important if you're making an active ability. You can change the duration, but since this is a passive, passive ability, we don't really have to change anything because you would be able to select which visual to use. You will be able to select how much it should cost, if it costs any runes, if you were to make like a spell that shoots a projectile or whatever, it does damage. So you can select this type of school that it does, your cooldown. This is where you do it in the base, but for now that's not really important. What we want to go to is effects. So, number one is you select your target. Well, we currently don't really have a target because it's a passive spell on ourselves. The procs part is very important. This is where you select whenever you want, when it should proc. What we're currently going to do is when we cast a spell, we're going to get an absorb shield. So we're gonna uncheck these. We're gonna do on heal done, since that's a spell, on spell damage done, on another heal done, and on spell damage done, and we're gonna do on periodic effect done. And this is where the proc this is where you enter the proc chance. And the proc chance that's displayed here is in percentages. So we're gonna say let's do 50%. Don't forget to save your spell changes. And then we go to effects. So this is where you actually decide what should happen, who should be targeted, what kind of spell should be triggered, how many, if you are making a rogue spell, what should happen whenever you spend combo points. So when it comes to triggering other spells, it's very easy. First, you select that you want to apply an aura. Change the die size to 1. If you don't set the die size to 1, the spell just won't trigger. Then we go to target A, and we select target unit caster. We go to our apply aura name, and you go to aura 42, which procs, whenever it procs, you trigger another spell. So amplitude, when it comes to amplitude, what you would do is if you were to have a heal over time or a damage over time or anything else that does things over time, with amplitude you can decide how often that should happen in milliseconds. So say you heal 95 per 3 seconds, you would put in 3000 here. So now we're gonna say trigger spell. So we're gonna need a spell to trigger. So what I'm going to do is for this example, I'm going to spell 9800, which is a holy shield, which absorbs damage. So we're gonna copy that. Actually, we don't really need to copy it, I know by name. Then we go to our own spell, we go to test absorb spell, we go to our effects, and then we go to trigger spell, and we type here the spell ID of the spell that should be triggered. That's all you need to do. Then we go to save spell changes, the spell is saved, and now we're going to export. We're going to export the spell DBC. And now we wait for the spell database file to be exported. Alright. Now that the database file has been exported, I'm going to close my game, because we need to patch it. Don't worry about that. It's just some of my custom patches. The spell editor exports database file in the exports folder. So you're going to copy that spell DBC. We're going to first put it in our server. So we're going to core, then we go to data, go to DBC. We're going to override our spell DBC. Now I would highly recommend that you always make a backup of your spell database file. So if you ever want to return to a standard one, you can do that. Luckily I've got a folder with standard database files, so it's fine. So what we're then going to do is we're going to start our server. I have a handy control panel here to start my server, so I'm going to start my Apache, I'm going to start my SQL, now I'm going to start my authentication server, and I'm going to start my world server. So while that is all starting up, we're going to our MPQ editor, and we're going to make a patch. Making a patch is very easy. I'm going to just make a brand new patch. First, we're going to new. We're just going to call it patch b.mpq. Next, we're going to just create a new empty MPQ archive. We go to next, just next, it doesn't really matter. So what you want to do here is you want to make a new folder called db files client. And db file client is the database file that needs to be changed. So you enter that, you import the spell database folder, file, and then you close. That's it. Now our patch is made. We're going to our Rapid Lich King client. Let me find it here. Then we're going to the data. Gonna remove the old patch. I'm gonna paste in the new patch. So now we're going to run World of Warcraft. I'm going to log in. I usually like to make a new character, but for this test, I'm just going to use an existing character. You also want to make sure that you have a Game Master level account. I'm gonna assume that you already have that. Oh, let me just log out of this one. I'm just gonna make a new character. Just a yeah, that'll do. A random troll. Actually, it shouldn't be a troll because we need someone to cast spells. So we're just gonna take a human priest, randomize it. Alright, let's skip the intro. Alright, now what we're gonna do is we're going to learn our spell that we just made. That we've made this spell, test observe spell. So now what we're gonna do is when we heal ourselves, there we go. The spell's procced. And that's pretty much the very basics. When it comes to writing a like a chance, that's what I did was accidentally wrong. You're supposed to put in something else. I don't currently know what you have to put in, but if you have any questions, just let me know. And that's how you make a spell with a proc effect.